Hello there, and welcome to a new video for Dwarf Fortress from me. This one features 10 easy to implement tips and tricks for your defenses. I have chosen carefully things that are easy to understand, easy to implement, and I made this list as compatible as possible for beginners, and I took care to bring up interesting thoughts and concepts for veterans as well. So in a nutshell, I hope that a few of these were new to you if you are already experienced with the game, and I hope the tips are useful to you if you still are finding your way around and trying to find effective ways to keep your fortress safe. With that being said, let's dive into number 1 on the list, which is regarding a trap. The first one that I want to talk about, because I'm going to feature more traps here, is the Stonefall trap. The Stonefall trap gets the first feature because I love it for its simplicity and effectivity. The Stonefall trap requires only one piece of mechanism and boulder, and you can rack them up in a line to make really devastating corridors that can really brutally mess up enemies. If you put up in an area like this a gap which is filled with water or magma, you can't even force enemies to jump accidentally into their death, because enemies try to dodge whenever they get hit by something. Since you can here produce a corridor of dirty, cheap, attacking things, you can really utilize this even for more advanced systems. Downside of these, their damage is rather meh. You will trigger a ton of these before you bring down a really bulky or heavily armored enemy, but they're awesome for your early game defenses when metal isn't available yet, or like I said, if you want to make fancy dodge traps, they're dirty cheap, you can spam the hell out of them. So number 2 regards cage traps. So cage traps are amazing, and I want to recommend them, and just want to put up one thing first. Cage traps won't hurt your dwarves unless they are webbed. So just like Stonefall traps, they won't hurt your own people, and they will lock up practically everything except for forgotten beasts and titans. There's pretty much most of the monsters in this game get locked up in a cage trap if they are dumb enough to step on it. The wonderful thing about it is they can catch stuff like dragons and really fierce things. The downside is you end up with a ton of cages that you need to take care of with things, because at the end of the day, either you produce ever more cages and ever more storage for the things in your cages, or you find a way to empty those. Here are a few ideas to empty your cages. A training room filled with chains where you chain up the monsters and give your soldiers a direct hand-on-hand training, because that trains them really well. The other methods that I love to use are either a magma chamber, where you just use the pit area and toss them in. Works with water too, just take care that you don't take things that are not able to drown. Or alternatively, you can also put an atom smasher underneath them, toss in, flick switch, crunch, also a good method. Or you can feed it to the local forgotten beast. There are so many ways how you can empty your cages, but you have to take care of the cages one way or another. That's the hidden downside of these. As a little tip here, I love to use wood as the base material for cages, because wood is a much less dense material than metal, so it's easier to carry. Therefore, if there's nothing fire involved, wooden cages are amazing. And ironically enough, a fire-spitting dragon won't be able to escape from a wooden cage as far as I know. So there's that. Number 3 goes for weapon traps. So weapon traps are really amazing, because every fortress that I know and that I played in the longer term had a immense resource of weapons that came from sieges. Your local goblin mines will leave you with lots and lots of weapons, and if you are fighting other species here, for example an iron hand, the two-handed swords here, sometimes you even get weapons that your species specifically can't use. Weapon traps are an amazing last resort for these items. You can put up to 10 of these in there and they will do killing for you. And the only downside about weapon traps is they need to get unjammed from time to time. So that's a little bit of an uncomfortable thing. But since you can really stick in there whatever you want, whatever you got left over, I really love these for, yeah, let's get rid of the leftover gear. That's amazing. And this way you can bring up quite deadly traps and trap corridors without spending a little bit of resource. Of course, you can also smelt down the gear instead if you really need the metal, but I personally love to use weapon traps as a quick solution for the things to declutter my base in a useful way, you know? Just keep one thing in mind: when you're filling ranged weapons into your weapon traps, you need the ammo to actually utilize them. So no arrows, no utilizing a bow in a weapon trap. But funnily enough, bows cannot be used by dwarves. In a trap, you can use them. Okay, enough about weapon traps. Let's get on over to number 4. That's regarding a fortress seal, how I like to call it. So in this fortress, this is the only entrance to my actual fortress. I built a little bit of a desert castle here, and I have linked this one to a lever, and if I flick that one, this bridge immediately gets raised and nobody from the outside can't enter this fortress anymore. And I strongly recommend you to have one of these switches as well, because sometimes something roams onto the map which you are really not able to handle, and it's really good to have a method to just pause the situation, put the monster on pause basically, and wait until you find a solution or the monster gets killed otherwise. Either way, if you don't have a method like that, forgotten beasts, titans, and whatever might be roaming towards your base, if there is a open way to your base, they path directly to your base to wreak havoc upon them. This method, of course, works as well for the subterranean. Here I got the same kind of mechanisms for my cavern entrances. Here I also utilize doors. As of the current version, if you do this, nothing can enter through the door anymore, because doors are currently indestructible. In previous versions, Forgotten Beasts were able to destroy doors, so I expect this to be fixed in the upcoming versions. And also keep in mind, Forgotten Beasts and Titans are immune against traps, so you won't be able to use cage traps, weapon traps, whatever traps won't work. But what will work is a raised drawbridge. Drawbridges are, as of yet, still indestructible by all means, and you see here's my paranoid version. But if you want a quick and easy solution, you don't even need the levers currently. You just need to have a door in place to bar up the fortress. Basically, you could also have 3 doors here instead of a bridge. Would also work. Either way, keep up a way to seal off your fortress, because it is invaluable in a crisis situation. Number 5 regards the location of the barracks in your fortress, because every fortress sooner or later should have some military going on. I personally love to have my barracks wherever I anticipate combat to happen. So in this fortress I have 1 barracks very close to the surface against sieges, 1 barracks very close to the cavern entrance on layer 1, 1 barracks very close to the cavern entrance on layer 3, where I'm also currently trying to mine some adamantine. So it's really useful to have strike forces wherever you think that something bad might happen. Be it here, where I want to safely chop some underground wood and I don't want my people to be eaten alive by cave alligators. Having your military around the corner makes the response time really fast. Also, as a bonus, if you do stuff like that, this is Kevin's layer 3, so I added in a little bit of a lunch room. This is officially flagged as a dining room, and I have a stockpile zone with drink, food, mugs, and tables. And this way, if they ever get hungry or thirsty, they just go on in there, eat some, drink some, and get back to training instead to going all the way back to my city core at elevation level 26. That'd be 105 levels. This saves so much time, and if you are willing to put the effort in, you can also put beds either into the barracks and delete the bedrooms of your soldiers. It's a little bit of a finicky task, or you add bedrooms to your soldiers or a dormitory down here so they can have a place where they can sleep quickly. But I must say, if you want to manipulate their sleep behavior most effectively, make sure they have no bedrooms in your city core, because that always interfered somehow with my setups that I tried to employ. Number 6 regards civilian safety. So there are 2 ways to ensure civilian safety that are super easy to implement. Number 1 of these is a seal, just like the one that I have on the surface. I also have one for the city. Just flick that switch and everybody in the city core is cut off from the rest of the fortress. They have a lot of provisions down here because I have some food in the dining room, drinks in the tavern. They would last a while even if we would be sieged here for a longer period of time. Add into that creating a burrow covering the city area, assigning all the civilian people in there, and whenever I now unpause that thing, people will flock in there, stay there. Just make sure that this is not like, so this allows your citizens to leave the borough. We don't want that. Make sure it looks like this, so they will not take anything from outside of the borough for the remaining time. And this way, you can order your civilians to flock in there. Then when you're satisfied with everybody being in there, you flick the switch and then you can take care of whatever problem might be plaguing your base. Bonus points if you manage to put a seal in between the different layers of your city, because you never know when a lycanthrope is going to go ham in your current local tavern. Just as a random thought of paranoia. So, number 7 regards animal sentries. So, animals can spot stealth enemies, and stealth enemies are really something you don't want to get ambushed by. By the way, lycanthropes, weird monsters, they are stealthy too. So, what I did here, I put a few dogs here in front of my base, in between those cage traps. I would love to have some more, and basically, when somebody's stealth comes around the corner, the dogs might or might not spot them. When they're on stealth, they get vulnerable to traps again, and boom, cage trap, done. Or the whole thing goes down here further. You can use the animal sentries either with a chain, or you can also use a pen and pasture command. The difference between these two is, if it's in a pasture, the animal will run away when it's being threatened, and if it's on a chain, it will fight because it can't run away if it's threatened. The animal sentries are a wonderful way of securing yourself against stealthy enemies, be it gremlins, to put up something less deadly than lycanthropes. Can also be really easily sniffed out with these. Also a good usage for all those spare tamed animals. Number 8 regards cheap gear. You know, not always do you have access to all the materials that you need to staff out your soldiers just well. There is one wonderful thing though that you can do, and that's at the Craft Stores workshop. You can craft yourself quite a lot of gear out of bone. There's gauntlets, greaves, helmets, leggings, and this makes up already a lot of the gear that a soldier needs. You're only lacking shoes and a breastplate and a shield, and you already have your dwarf covered completely. So in this scenario, if you have very very low amounts of metal, you could just get yourself a breastplate to complement that. Make yourself a wooden shield. That will be also no investment of metal either, and put up leather boot or a metal boot, whatever might be the case. You can cover your soldiers very cheaply with that. So what's the matter though? Isn't this armor crappy, you might ask yourself? Yes, it's much worse than Metal Gear. But in Dwarf Fortress, being not armored at all versus being at least armored somehow makes a tremendous difference. If you put up a legendary dwarf in armor against something, even if it's only crap shoddy bone armor, it will make him lots and lots more effective, because he has a chance to actually deflect blows. Without armor, he has no chance to do so. That's the base logic behind it. That's why, if you can make cheap gear, and I showed you a few ways it means, it's so worth it. Now, number 9 regards base design. When you are designing your base, you don't need to know all the ways and means of defense that you want to put up. I'm personally not a good person, not a good player to plan out things extensively up ahead either. But you can do one thing. You can leave room for defenses. Here, for example, I left the entire floor here just for shenanigans. So here I put up these stonefall traps, and if I'd wanted to, I could divert the flow of the enemy to a completely different layer. I could use all that, put a wall in here, and reroute the flow. I could also put a wall in here and reroute the flow completely somewhere else. If I'd had a flat shaft going downstairs like here, I wouldn't have these options whatsoever. It would be really hard to break up the logistics and all. So do yourself a favor and just leave sometimes some room. Leave a blank spot, leave a blank layer here and there, and you can utilize these later for your defense measures when you have an idea. And I really gotta say, the best ideas so far for my fortresses I had across the way and not at the very beginning. I don't know, there are some genius players out there who plan out their entire base in their mind. I'm really always astonished when I see these things, but I'm personally not one of those players, and maybe you'll find this helpful for yourself as well. Number 10 regards roofs and how you can build roofs cheaply. So whenever you put up a wall, you must know monsters can climb, and without a roof on top of the wall, you're going to be the monster will just climb over the wall and attack your base by that. So basically, if I wouldn't have the layout that I have here with everything covered, the goblin or whoever would just crawl over there and invade my base. So if this would have no roof, hypothetically, and this would be lifted, they'd be just crawling over there, enter the base, end of the story. So just to elaborate why roofs are so important. But since roofing is extremely costly, for example, if you want to just roof that little piece here, I want to give you a few figures, we'd be needing 238 blocks. So you can go with bridges. Bridges are an amazing way to emulate that. Check it out. So the bridge here only needs 60 blocks. It's so much less material necessary, and it acts practically as the same. It'll shut off the enemy from entering from above. And if you need to fix up a lid on top of something really quickly, bridges are amazing. It's especially useful for underground areas, because in the underground areas here, I have a wonderful example. I'm scrolling upwards. As you see here, this area would be really, really good for agricultural purposes or whatever you want to do there, but it's also vulnerable from above. So if we put up a bridge in this area or several bridges like that, we'd be able to seal off the area with much less of a material effort. Of course, here I cannot really showcase it well. Oh, we have a point here. So as you see here, we could just bridge off this entire thing. This is the limit, by the way. You can make these bridges insanely large. I mean, I want to zoom out to give you a full. This is the largest bridge that you can do. This still counts as a bridge, as one building. So this way you can cheese the game by utilizing much less material to have the same effect. Downside of the bridge method, it does not isolate against temperatures. So that means if burning heat is from above, like from magma or from freezing temperatures, this does not keep the temperature away. Flooring would, but that's really the only thing that I was able to find out in my researches. So yeah, I don't have anything to add for this video. I hope you found these tips and tricks helpful. I took a lot of effort into keeping them basic and simple. I know I didn't touch complex trap mechanisms. I didn't touch siege weapons or all the things, fortifications or ranged people. There's a lot of things that I could have done here in this video, but I wanted to keep the first of these videos as accessible for everybody as possible. So leave me in your comments down below whatever you want to see more tips and tricks about, like defenses or whatever Dwarf Fortress might cross your mind. Feel free to share your own defensive measures that I didn't cover here. I really, really love to learn new things, and so do the other people, and I always think these videos are best if we have lots of information for everybody to pack up. Thumbs up for that video if you want to support, because that makes it more visible for everybody else. And a subscription to the channel is a great and cheap way to support this channel and me, because you only need one click. If you hit the bell thing, you get notified. And if you want more Dwarf Fortress, there's playlist links down there that you can indulge yourself with. So that being said, I hope you have a great time. Thanks so much for watching this video, and I hope you have a good time with those games. See you soon.